Dr. Ndami Diop, the country director for Nigeria from the World Bank. Thank you so much for speaking to Arise News. It's good to see you here at the IMF World Bank annual meetings in DC.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Nigeria on Wednesday hosted a number of foreign investors talking about reforms and so on and so forth. From your perspective, you engaged with investors in the private sector for all through your career. What do you think they want to see and hear from Nigeria?
Yeah. Now, first of all, I think this engagement that you mentioned is exactly the right thing to do. Communicating the reforms, the significance of the reforms, the early and expected impact, and stressing the fact that there is no going back to unsustainable policy, I think is really the right thing to do. So I'm very glad that the Nigerian Governor of Central Bank and Minister of Finance have had the chance to do it here in Washington. From my perspective, these reforms really do three good things for the Nigerian economy. Number one, they have avoided, or they helped avoid, a deep fiscal crisis. Just to illustrate, in 2022, the share of debt service on total net revenues was about 100%. So this is not sustainable. The second thing it does is that it really helps stabilize the economy, reduce macroeconomic risk, and then really improve the policy framework, which is really important for investment, private investment in particular, and growth. And then the third thing is really providing the fiscal space for the government to be finally able to spend on the health, the education, the social protection of Nigerians, but also on critical infrastructure, all of which are really important. Now, all of that said, we should recognize that these reforms or these benefits have come with quite high social cost. Inflation is high, and many Nigerians are really feeling the pinch. It is urgent to support them, to support all the people that are really struggling with high inflation. It is imperative to scale up the cash transfer program, which actually I'm very familiar with because the World Bank is financing and supporting technically. Nigeria has chosen to go with a sort of what we call golden standard in terms of cash transfer, which basically means that you use the social registry, which actually we helped to put together in Nigeria. It's a 19 million household registry. That's about 60 to 70 million Nigerians, bottom up. But what the government has decided to do after January is to really make sure that everyone who gets the cash transfer is biometrically identified and the transfer is done digitally. All of that is for the integrity of the system, and it's very good. But unfortunately, it slows down a little bit the process because you have to go back to the registry and make sure that these potential beneficiaries have the national identification number, but also the bank verification number. And so it's been quite a process logistically, but the bank has been really helping. And in recent weeks, some breakthrough have been found to really accelerate the registration of these households. And so far, I think 4.5 million households have benefited, but we really need to ramp that up very quickly to reach 15 million, which is the target for the government.
Thank you for that.
And the second,
yes,
if I just may say,
please.
The second thing that is really critical in my view is to ensure that the savings from these reforms are spent on those things that I mentioned, like education, health, critical infrastructure, social protection, so that the Nigerian feel the benefits of these reforms. And I think this is really critical going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the in-depth solutions there. I wanted to talk to you about electricity. Nigeria right now, the Energy Commission, Director General and CEO of the Energy Commission, is looking at domesticating the manufacturing of solar panels in order to be able to get more people electricity. Do you think that's a realistic initiative?
Well, first of all, electricity supply is a big constraint right now for human capital in Nigeria. And we know that without improving the sort of reliability and supply of electricity, the economy will really not be able to grow at its potential. And then at the micro level, the firms will struggle to increase their productivity, to expand, and the smaller ones will see all their sort of margins eaten by cost of electricity or high cost of electricity. So it's absolutely critical. Now, I think the solution is a mix of perhaps three things. One is grid electricity. And Nigeria cannot industrialize without that. So it is absolutely critical to do those reforms that are relatively well known. And the World Bank has programs supporting the reforms in the power sector. You really have to fix the discos. You have to make sure that the discos are economically viable and are able to pay their bills. You have to really make sure that they invest in metering. They have the meters to be able to identify consumers and to really collect enough to be able to pay their bills. You need to ensure that they can invest in the distribution infrastructure so that they can increase the reliability of electricity supply. But it's not just the discos. You also have to invest in transmission. You have to invest also in generation. So all of that is really critical, and that's the first bucket. Second bucket is, by the time the transmission lines get to some rural areas and peri-urban areas, it may take a long time. So those people shouldn't wait. We should provide them with off-grid electricity or mini-grid electricity, right? And this is actually a positive story. There's a lot of developers throughout Nigeria that are investing in these areas. However, because of the cost of delivering electricity in this remote area, you need to really incentivize those developers. And the World Bank actually is working with government on a very ambitious project whereby the bank incentivizes developers. They get a sort of catalytic grant that will actually basically make the decision. Without that, they wouldn't really invest. And the target is 17.5 million household connected, and firms, small firms, connected through that means. So it's a very exciting story, and I think it's something that is happening quite fast right now in Nigeria. It's part of the solution. And then the last bit is to really leverage beyond solar all the natural resources that Nigeria has to really increase supply through renewable energy, right? The project that I just mentioned is actually solar. It's a solar system. But beyond solar, you also have, small hydro, etc., which Nigeria can mobilize. Now, I think the fact that Nigeria has the ambition to increase the renewable part in the energy mix provides the opportunity for manufacturers to invest in Nigeria. Nigeria has two advantages. One is the critical mineral or the inputs going into the production of solar exist in Nigeria. So by optimizing policy, Nigeria can attract investment in that sector. But it will have to do really the hard work of, identifying all the barriers, preventing the scale-up of investment in this area, and addressing them.